Welcome to A New You. Cerebral palsy is an umbrella term for a group of permanent neurological conditions that affect a person's ability to move, maintain balance, and hold posture. It is the most common physical disability in children. It is generally caused by abnormal brain development or damage to the developing brain, which typically occurs during pregnancy, at birth, or shortly after birth. While the underlying brain injury is permanent, the condition itself does not worsen over time, although symptoms can change as a person grows.
My twin sister also has cerebral palsy, but she went through the special school system, which I didn't. I went through the mainstream school system. So our experiences of disability were very different. Hers was quite institutionalised in one sense, and her education was very poor as a result of attending the special school system, and I had a much better education going through the mainstream system. I have been sort of around the disability community, so I do identify as being disabled, and I was participated in the International Year of the Disabled in 1981, I think it was.
Wow.
So all that kind of living through the revolution, and and with the NDIS, another revolution. But what I find with these revolutions is there's still a struggle. It's not that things are made so much easier that people with disabilities can't afford to struggle. They're just struggling differently. So yes, things are improving, but no, you still have to struggle. It was a novelty to the children and to the teachers as well. So some teachers felt making an allowance to a disabled student was something they shouldn't do, and so to maintain a standard, and you still come across that attitude. If you're going to make it, you've got to make it on their terms, and there's very little leeway. So, and also representation. I think there was one other disabled person at my high school. There was no other disabled person at my primary school that I went through. And the other disabled person that went to my high school left and ended up going to supported work at a sheltered workshop. It was called that. I'm sorry to use that term, but that was the term of the period.
Of course.
So I'm historically correct. And so, you know, his road was very different to mine. So I was able to go on to higher education and a lot more fortunate in my journey. It's very confronting to be able to dance properly. So that's the first thing you're told as a disabled dancer, is that no, you can't dance because people's ideas of what dance are would exclude you because you wouldn't be able to do it properly to their satisfaction. But if you've got a version of dance that is not ableist and allows participation of anybody, including disabled people, to dance, because you now define dance not as counting and doing the right steps, but as any movement. So if I raise my arm like this, which to the horror of the camera people, that is a form of dancing, because I'm in movement. And that's a very broad definition of dance. So if I'm able to teach that form of dance to other disabled people, then I'm empowering them to become dancers of a kind. So no, they might not learn the rumba and the cha-cha and the, you know, what's seen by the able-bodied community as dance, but they're able to move to music in a joyful and celebration kind of way. So that is dancing in my mind.
I think so too.
I have ever my brain is acquired at birth.
that's your reality.
Yeah.
So Stella acquired her brain injury at birth, and so she's had it all her life, and she hasn't known anything different. So Stella, tell me what it was like. Tell me what school was like for you.
Growing up, it was. I went
You went to a mainstream school.
But in the when I got the high school, I had a bit of a bad experience with the school. I was there for 2.5 years, and I weren't very inclusive of me. They didn't understand my disability from my brain injury, and they got me out of my classes, but they really did believe I was running, and they just believe that I was intelligent enough
Yes.
to be able to run with the rest of the class.
So you're saying that your former high school didn't believe that you were intelligent enough
Yeah.
to do the work, and so you moved to a different school.
Yeah.
How was that school different?
Oh, they were the opposite. They put me back in all my classes. They really believed in me and my capabilities, and they were able to support me to get what I learned is a bit of my ability, and they were just really inclusive, and yeah.
So were they a disability school, or they were just a mainstream school who helped you with your access needs?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And then help me with my acting, and they put me
Yeah. So did your mum like find that school, and was it far away from you? Did you have to travel very far?
No, it was about a minute away.
Oh wow,
So,
that's great. So had they had experience with people with disabilities before?
yeah,
Yeah.
there were 2 other girls in my year level
Yeah.
with disabilities.
Did they have brain injuries too?
No, I don't believe.
No.
But yeah,
Yeah, great.
and it ain't my education,
It changed your education.
but I was able to get the support I need.
Multiple sclerosis, known as MS, is a chronic immune-mediated and neurodegenerative disease that affects the central nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. The body's immune system mistakenly attacks myelin, the protective sheath that covers nerve fibers. This damage disrupts the electrical signals travelling between the brain and the rest of the body. Over time, this process can lead to the deterioration or permanent damage of the nerves themselves. Common symptoms include fatigue, vision problems, muscle weakness, numbness or tingling, and difficulties with balance and coordination. MS is often described as unpredictable because it is difficult to foresee when new symptoms will appear, how severe they will be, and how long they will last.
You tell me, how do you deal with your multiple health challenges and still do everything you do?
One day at a time.
Yeah,
If I sit back and look too far into the future, it becomes a little bit overwhelming. So definitely one day at a time. I see a counsellor every fortnight, have done so for the last 12 years. That keeps me grounded. I don't believe it's my family or friends' responsibility to hear me vent on everything that's going wrong within my body and within my mind. So I pay someone to dump on that.
That's wonderful, that's what they're there for.
That's exactly right.
Can you take us through your challenges?
Yeah, sure. So in 2011 I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. 2013, 14 and 15 underwent heart surgeries. 2016 started going purple with a condition that my kids thought that I looked like a zombie from The Walking Dead, which then led me to being diagnosed with lividio reticularis, which then led me to being diagnosed with melanoma when they were looking for lymphoma. Then I got diagnosed with mixed cryoglobulinemia, so I was making too much protein in my blood, which then led me to being diagnosed in January 2017 with chronic lymphocystic leukemia and small lymphocystic lymphoma. So I had 3 primary cancers, 2 blood conditions and the MS all at the same time. Then in 2018 I was diagnosed with lipedema, which is inflammation of the fat, which affects 11% of all women, known as painful fat syndrome. And then recently I was diagnosed with mast cell activation syndrome. I think that's all of them. When I was diagnosed with the MS, with my acquired brain injury, my neurologist told me that I would never be able to work again, and my world just crumbled. The life that I thought that I was going to live no longer existed. And my mum had MS. So I'd already walked this path beside someone with it, and she passed away from complications at the age of 49 and I was 40. So it was a daunting time in my life. So I stopped work, and the only good thing that neurologist told me was to find a hobby, and having a hobby is really, really critical for building resilience in your life. And I didn't have hobbies because I was so career focused at the time that I always wanted to learn how to paint, but it's like, oh, I'll do that when I retire. I'll do that one day, I'll do that one day. Anyway, when he said to me, oh, you better find a hobby, I went, oh, well, I think now's the time to go and do that. But my anxiety was so high. I drove every week to that art class and sat outside the door and couldn't walk inside. So if you'd said to me back in 2011 that I'd be sitting here being interviewed with you, I would have laughed, because that was so far from where I was. Anyway, one day I got cranky at myself and walked inside and took to it like a duck to water, because I'd lost the capacity to earn my own money. That was taken away when I was told I wouldn't be able to work again, and I solely became reliant on another person. And now here I was painting. I thought, I'm going to enter an exhibition, and I did, and I sold that piece for $300, and man, that felt like $3 million to me. And all of a sudden I had some purpose back. So it wasn't, oh, well, I can pay my taxes and I can earn money again. It was, wow, people stand and look at my artwork and they smile. And so I was giving back in a cultural way rather than in a monetary way, because I felt like I was such a burden on society at that particular point.
So your diagnosis must have affected more than just your career. Of course, it must have affected everything about your life.
I mean, look, I have 3 master's degrees. I have 2 undergraduate degrees. I was the breadwinner in my family. I was working full-time, raising 3 children. My, then husband wasn't super keen on working. Forgive me he ever listens to this, he's my ex-husband, so he probably won't. And so that's probably one of the reasons why he is my ex-husband. But I carried all of this weight and all of this pressure to balance so many things. And once I was diagnosed with MS, I had to pull back. And I joke that, to other people, I was sort of this superwoman. How many women, we travelled, we lived in Vietnam, we lived in South Korea, we lived in the USA. I was working, I would pack up the family for the next adventure on the next job, and we'd all move. And then I would re-establish life, and the kids would be in school, and I'd be doing a leadership role in another school and doing another degree, and I was just going. And I remember one friend sort of saying, you're like superwoman. And for a while I was, until I realised that I was working so much harder beneath the surface. If you have a table and you have 6 legs holding it up and then slowly it's down to 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1, my energy, my sort of inner structural integrity was like that. I was down to the point where I was sort of, trying to balance on just one leg. And throughout the last few years, I've had some pretty significant challenges outside of the MS, just in my personal life, that I've had to navigate. And I had a really hard few days at one point, and I've been quite lucky. I haven't sort of, if you think about psychology in a set point, my set point's normally been pretty high. I sort of sit in the easy optimism space. And I've had a few times where I dip below, but not for long. And this one time, I just felt like I had headed down into a valley and I wasn't sure how to get myself back up and out of it. And I was thinking about my children, and my daughter was having a very, very hard time. And between my challenges and her challenges, and I knew she needed me, and I was struggling to show up, I just thought, you know what, Jen, you have got to stop falling down into these valleys of life. Not that we shouldn't fall down into these valleys, but I felt like I was stuck down in one. You have got to get out of this, and you've got to stand atop those peaks, and you've got to show up for these children and show them what it means when you're down to get up and climb up and stand, I guess, for me, like this, beacon of light to inspire my children initially. And so that idea of, the peaks and valleys of life became particularly important to me, and that sort of stemmed into this dream I'd had to climb for a lifetime, going, I actually have to go out and I have to do this. I have to climb a real mountain now. I had this belief when I was climbing Everest that I was facing so many challenges in my life, I didn't know how I was going to make an income again. I had had some challenges at work that had led to me stepping away. I was a single mum, my children were having challenges. I had MS, and I was struggling a bit with the symptoms of that, and going, and I didn't really have any money. And I went, how am I going to find my way through this? I told myself a story, and that story grew from, I'm going to stand atop the peaks in my life, and I was thinking the emotional, metaphorical, I'm going to get out of these valleys and I'm just going to be a strong woman who can handle, the blows of the, social, emotional world, really. And then I thought, and I'm going to climb real mountains to build up that, I guess, just build myself up and up as a person. And that led me over this journey of a couple of years to climbing Everest. And I didn't quite make it to the summit. I made it to the South Col to 8,000 metres, and it's a whole story in itself. It was it's a huge journey. It's a 2-month expedition, and I was the only Australian with MS to have attempted Everest, and logistics meant that things sort of fell apart at the South Col, and I broke. My absolute heart and spirit just broke, and I came back down and I fell into what I lovingly call the abyss. And this was pre-Everest, and I'd climbed another peak, and it had sort of flown under the radar, even though it's a harder peak. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and climb Everest. I'm going to summit Everest. And when I stand on top of the world, as the first Australian with MS, and only the second woman ever to do that, with MS that is, I am going to suddenly be whisked away into the world of speaking and become this inspirational, motivational speaker, and I won't have to worry about work. It won't matter if my MS progresses and I'm in a wheelchair. It won't matter what happens with my health. I'll have my story to tell of Jen Willis, the Everest summiteer. And so I didn't realise I was so attached to that story until I didn't stand on the summit, and then had to rewrite my own story to myself again.
just from that picking up that paintbrush, I'm sitting here today because one business has flown into the next business, and it's like a snowball effect all the way through.
So you have multiple challenges, but you also have multiple businesses. You should get a little Filodex charm and you know.
That's a good idea.
I wonder if who is it? Who Pandora? I wonder if Pandora would do
I'll
a
have
Filodex
to,
charm.
have a look at that. Yeah. So I now run and own 5 businesses. I won Geelong's Business Leader of the Year last year. I'm the first disabled person to actually win that able-bodied competition. I'm pretty proud of that one, and show, you know, how far you can actually go when you set your mind to something.
Absolutely. And despite your multiple challenges, your multiple demands on your attention, you still open the space for other people's growth. Can you tell me more about that?
Well, I believe that, you know, through my story it gives other people hope in their own lives, and my purpose in life is to help other people. So when I lost what my purpose was back in 2011, I definitely found it along the journey over the last few years. I can't actually count properly anymore, so that's one of my brain injuries, is counting, multitasking and things like that. So because I have been through so much, people can identify their own self within my journey, and people gravitate towards me as well. So if I can help one person when I'm getting up doing a keynote speech, you know, anywhere in the world, then it's made it worth going there and doing that.
I've learnt a lot about myself and what I need to do when I'm faced with challenges, and one of them is, I guess, you know, I sort of likened telling someone about once I hadn't summited and I was down in this abyss, and I was telling the story of what had happened and telling it to myself or telling it to others. And I would sort of tell this story, this hopeful story. Oh, it's okay. I was, you know, I didn't summit, but I was going to become my own hero, and I found her at the bottom of the hill. And I have a story in or a TED talk that's around that, you know, becoming your own hero. And I told that, you know, 2 weeks after I was back from the mountain. And when I was telling that, in that moment, I felt like it was true. And I realised that if I'm down in this space and I've got this ladder, this sort of, you know, imaginary ladder I need to climb, tell the story that's a solid rung up and I'm getting out of the abyss. But I would tell a story and go to grab that rung on the ladder, and it was just an illusion. And I was like, that's not getting me out of here. Why does that story? And I realised because I was telling the stories that I felt were sort of, I don't know, would allow me some grace, would allow me to still be respected when I wasn't respecting myself at the time. And it wasn't until I started telling those stories that I allowed myself to, you know, be, I guess, embrace just how disappointed I had been, and embrace how lofty I could be in some of my ideas and how ungrounded I'd really been feeling for a long time. And once I was able to be a lot more honest with myself and think, you know, I've sacrificed a lot of who I was over probably the last 25 years, and it wasn't until I got back to who she was, the truth of who I felt I was.
Of course, so the stories that you need to tell yourself are the stories that help you find and help you acknowledge the faith that you have within yourself to make it through. It's not about standing in front of people and looking for approval from them, but finding the approval from within.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, not the stories that I needed to tell
Everybody
friends
else.
or family or people professionally or anything to feel like I was, you know, in a space where I'd be respected in the world. I had to let go of all that and go, well, yeah, I will land where I land and it will be the right place for me.
Me participating on stage and calling myself a performer is a political act.
Yeah.
That's already a political act. And like the last show I participated in, the Weave Solos, I was dancing, but in the broadest possible terms. Like I was just taking off my shoes as a form of dance, drinking a cup of tea as a form of dance. And I got nominated for a Green Room Award as most outstanding performer based on that form of dance.
And that wouldn't be seen in normal in non-disabled terms as a tangible dance, but
Yeah.
in your case,
Well, it became a poetry of movement
wonderful.
in
Yeah.
the show to illustrate the themes that we were exploring. And we're using movement very deliberately to really get under the audience's armour. Because audiences come to a show, they see the disabled perform and they say, oh, look, entertain me or prove something to me, or what are you going to, what are you going to do? And the audience were puzzled because they didn't know what to think. I think, what should we think about this guy putting his shoes on? What should we think about this guy struggling to get up from the floor onto a chair? I'm feeling some kind of level of compassion. Should I feel sorry? Should I feel, what should I feel? And then, so it was using disability as a way of carving into people's feelings, and theatre can be about feeling something as much as being entertained.
That's all for this week. If you'd like to email us, email at info@anewyou.au. See you next week.
I knew you, I knew you. Rise from the ash and blue. I knew